In 8th grade, I decided to go out for the football team. It was in 8th grade that we could first play tackle football, and that was a favorite sport of mine in the neighborhood. And I had been gifted by being wearing size husky clothes, which I always thought was a compliment. And I thought that football would be just the thing for me. Lo and behold, I found myself able to play in the position that I most desired. I got to be the middle linebacker, which meant that I got to be in almost every defensive play because I could see where the ball was going, and then I could run there and just try to make a tackle and to be part of it. But there was one curious day at practice where for some reason I just wasn't feeling it. I don't know why, but I just remember being on the field and not being all that excited to run in and be involved in tackling people. And to my surprise, in the midst of practice, I heard our coach yell, "Waterbury, replace Johnston!" And so off I trotted onto the sideline and stood. That had never happened before at all. It just never happened. And to make things more disturbing for me, you need to understand that Craig Waterbury, albeit a wonderful human being, was about a third of my size. And to see him out there doing what I should be doing drove me crazy. My coach never said a word to me. No more was ever said, and no more ever needed to be said. I made sure that I was involved in the game from that point on. Well, beloved of God, welcome to this, the Epiphany Sunday. It's still Merry Christmas. It's still that wonderful time when we celebrate the birth of our newborn King, Jesus. But it's also, by our calendar, Happy New Year, too. And this is our first Sunday together of 2021. We thought it would never get here. And how exciting it is to begin by looking at the Epiphany of the Lord. Let's hear a couple scriptures. The first comes to us from Isaiah chapter 60, verses 1 through 6. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. For behold, darkness shall cover the earth, and deep darkness the people. But the Lord will arise over you, and his glory will be seen upon you. The Gentiles shall come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your rising. Lift up your eyes all around and see. They all gather together. They come to you. Your sons shall come from afar, and your daughters shall be nursed at your side. Then you shall see and become radiant, and your heart shall swell with joy, because the abundance of the sea shall be turned to you. The wealth of the Gentiles shall come to you. The multitude of camels shall cover your land. The dromedaries of Midian and Ephah, all those from Sheba shall come. They shall bring gold and incense, and they shall proclaim the praises of the Lord. From Isaiah. Yes, this is the day that we celebrate and remember the coming of the three wise men. Our New Testament reading comes to us from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 2. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and have come to worship him. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem was with him. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and the scribes of the people together, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. So they said to him, In Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophets, But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not the least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people, Israel. Then Herod, when he had secretly called the wise men, determined from them what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, and said, Go and search carefully for the young child, and when you have found him, come back and bring word to me, that I may come and worship him too. When they heard the king, they departed, and behold, the star which they had seen in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. And when they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceedingly great joy. And when they had come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary, his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented gifts to him, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Then, being divinely warned in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed for their own country another way. The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Well, this has been just an interesting time and a wonderful time to talk about Epiphany, because we've all heard about the Christmas star that was in the sky, visible most everywhere but Michigan on December 21st and December 22nd, where the planets Jupiter and Saturn came so close together that it was just a unique sight in the sky. I'm happy to say that I somehow was able to see that on December 22nd. The clouds broke for just a moment, and I was able to see that. And it made me think of this story and of people who traveled from a long distance to worship the King of the Jews, Jesus Christ. In our New Testament reading, I find three different distinct groups of people, and I find that this is worth our consideration. We have Herod and his governmental people. We have the priest and the scribes. And then we have the wise men. And let's just, as we think of these people, look at the continuum of where we go through from fear to faithful and joyful worship. We'll start with Herod. Herod hears that there's a king, and that there is a king of the Jews that has been born. Herod says that he'd like to worship this king, but the truth of the matter is, Herod worships only Herod. Herod worships his power. Herod worships his position, his authority, and he will not surrender that to anyone else, be they of heaven or of earth. And so when we look at Herod, we see the hardened heart that will not submit or subject itself to the love and to the promises of God. It's the heart that says, I will do it my way, and I will do it no other way. And I really don't care what anyone else has to say. When we consider Epiphany and the revelation and the revealing of Jesus Christ, King of Kings, Lord of Lords, to the world, may we not respond like Herod and say, there is no king but me. I am the one who will sit on the throne. As a matter of fact, the more you think about Herod, the more you think about the scriptures that speak of Satan, where Satan talks about, I will sit on the throne of the Most High. I. As the joke goes, these people have eye trouble. And the only thing that they can see is themselves and their position and their power. And they do so to their own eternal damnation. Scary, scary, scary place to be. But then we think, okay, what about the chiefs and the scribes? These people who knew the scriptures and were looking, at least in theory, for the coming of a king. When asked, they knew exactly the place of where the Messiah was going to be born. And don't you find it interesting that when we look at a manger scene, there isn't a scribe or a Pharisee to be found standing there? When I think of Herod, I think of just absolute, total absorption with self and with power. And when I think of the priest and of the scribes in this particular passage, I think of people who give, in name only, homage to Jesus. They're so caught up in their own thing that for whatever reason, they really don't have the time to really come and to look and to see. They've claimed to know all that God is about and all that God is going to do. And yet they miss the work of God, even when it is right under their very own nose. This challenges me, especially as a pastor, when someone comes and says, I have a vision of a ministry that our church could be doing that I think God is in. And it's something that maybe it's out of my comfort zone. Maybe it's something I've never ever thought of doing and I haven't seen going on. I need to be careful to not dismiss the fact that God may very well be in this. Look at the worship wars that have been fought through the years. Is God in pews or is God into chairs in the sanctuary? What about makeup? What about music? What about... The worship wars have been endless. And I think no one cries more than the Lord at our squabbles of where we become concerned with everything but Jesus and everything but worship. And so when we look at, again, the scribes and the Pharisees, we should be challenged by the fact that they were not at the stable that night, and they missed the work of God, even though they claimed to understand and to know what God was doing. May that not be our story. And then we come to the great outsiders. These are the people who are from not only a different region, but they're even considered a different race. They're considered a different religion. They are considered total outsiders to everything that Israel has been about. And yet these are the people who have come to worship. These are the people who are excited about what God is doing. I am blessed and I am challenged by the testimony and the example of the wise men. And I ask myself, God, have I become ho-hum in my faith? Sometimes I think the best work of the devil is to get us to take things for granted. And we see that in the scribes and the Pharisees, but we don't see that in the coming of the wise men. Prior to COVID-19, did you take going to church for granted? Prior to COVID-19, did you take that chance to have a cup of coffee with a good friend after church for granted? I could go on, but I think you get the point. This year, 2021, may we hear the words of the lesson that Epiphany teaches us, that God is in our midst and we should be excited with our prayers, our presence, our gifts, our worship, and our service. These are exciting days that we live in, and we have the opportunity to carry the love and the light of Jesus to our community and to the world in new and in different ways. Let us show forth the same example that the wise men showed, who put in the time, who put in the effort, who gave not only of their gifts but of their substance to serve and to worship Jesus Christ. What a wonderful lesson for us to begin a new year with. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Epiphany. Amen.